Okay, so thank you for coming today. Thank you for giving up some of your time. I know it's getting quite near Easter, deadlines are looming, etc. Basically, what we're trying to do this week is encourage everyone to think and talk more sustainably and more with a focus on environmental issues surrounding business in general. The University of Essex every year with their sustainability team try to put on either a sustainability week or, as in this year, an environment week. And again, this is just to highlight the issues that businesses are facing, the issues that departments across the university might be facing, or challenges, and more importantly, the strides we are making to help the university become more environmentally friendly, to become more sustainable in any aspect that we can. And so as a standalone department, we decided to put on a series of talks in the hopes to spread the good word of sustainability. So what we're going to do all throughout the week is invite speakers from our local businesses to talk about their sustainability drives or their environmentally focused practices. And these will be hosted alongside a talk from our student or graduate startups, giving them a platform to discuss how their businesses have evolved with sustainability or the environment in mind. So without going into too much detail, I'm going to hand you over to some of our speakers. And up first, we are going to be hearing from Ian Bates. He's from Real Brands. He's their co-founder and CEO. And Ian's talk will be very much focused around the sustainable packaging expertise that his company can provide. So now I've just managed to share my screen, I'm going to stop sharing so Ian can share his.
Morning, everybody. It's good to have you in my study. I'm located in a place called Latchington, just near Malden in Essex. I'm sure lots of you know where that is. Let me just flick up my slides 1 second. Are we all well today? I don't suppose anybody can reply. They're on quiet. Let me just share my screen. Right, here we go. If you can just give me thumbs up that you can see my. Yeah, that's the view from my office window. Not bad, hey? Can you see that all right? Good. Okay. So first of all, a little bit of background about, hopefully that works. Can you see that okay? Yeah? Okay, so a little bit of background about me. Would you believe it? When I was 10 years old, I had 2 jobs. One was I had a paper round, and I also worked at a local dairy farm, cleaning milk bottles and filling them up with milk. And the other thing I used to do is on the back of doing the paper round, I used to collect all the old newspapers and magazines from all of our neighbours. And then once a fortnight or so, we would take those newspapers up to Blackburn Paper Recycling Mill, and I used to turn that stuff into cash. And that was my first insight into the value of waste. Little did I realise that all these years later, that I would still be involved essentially in the same world, but in a very much more commercial way. My life changed very much dramatically on the 25th of December 2004. You may remember that date. That was the time when we had the tsunami in Asia, when it wiped out several villages along the coast of Thailand and other parts of Asia. And I sadly lost some friends out there. In fact, I was supposed to be there, but my plans changed. That was a life-changing experience, and it sort of set my life on a course of, you know what, this planet that we live on is so fragile. We need to, well, I need to do things slightly differently. Around about that time, you may or may not have watched a film called An Inconvenient Truth, which was produced by Al Gore. He didn't become president of the United States, but went on to commit his life really to environmental causes. And if you've not seen the film An Inconvenient Truth, there's been 2 versions of it now. I'd recommend you watch that. And that opened my eyes up to the damage that us as human beings are doing to the planet, and our over dependency on fossil based energy and fuels, etc. So those events have sort of shaped my life and has sort of created my passion for the environment, protecting the environment, and everything I do when we're designing packaging for clients. I make sure that's embedded in the thinking. Okay, so that's a bit of background. There are 4 big things going on in the world of packaging at the moment, which brands and retailers and producers are really thinking about. I'm going to focus on one of them today, but just broadly speaking, there's a drive towards reducing carbon footprints, which is going to be interesting given that we move so much product around the planet. You know, lots of packaging is still made in places like China. Lots of products are made in China, of course, and that's not going to end anytime soon. But there's a realization that by moving things around the planet, by moving produce around the planet, there's a huge impact of doing that. And we've got to find better ways of maybe growing locally and producing things locally. And I think that's going to be great news for future entrepreneurs and future manufacturers. I can see that more and more products will be manufactured locally, which I think is very exciting. And it's not just about the consumption of carbon, it's also the consumption of other things like water, for example. And as we know, moving water around is a really difficult thing to do. The other big piece is designing out waste through closed loop thinking. And we'll start to see brand owners and retailers starting to create ways of returning products and the packaging so that they can be used potentially forever. Unilever, for example, has just launched a range of their deodorant products, and you'll see it in brands like Dove, where you buy like a stick of deodorant, and the packaging will literally last forever. And you then buy capsules that pop into this. It's made of steel capsule, not capsule, sort of dispenser, really. The idea is that the packaging will last forever, and you then just reload it with the actual product. The other important thing that's going on is this change in routes to market. So we call it Omni Channel. I'm sure it's a term you've come across. You know, particularly with what we've just been living through, or are living through with the pandemic, people's buying habits are changing at an incredibly fast pace. The move from bricks and mortar retail to online shopping is happening at an incredibly fast pace. And we see that products, you know, subscription service, buying online, and brands creating loyalty with consumers through that omni-channel, making it available online, through retailers, click and collect, is going to be the way that brands and producers are going to survive. You know, just look at the state of the retail high street at the moment, and it's changed forever. You know, will department stores exist in the future? I'm not sure they will, quite frankly. Sad, but it's a reality. So the area I'm going to focus on is materials, which is the area that I'm most excited about, and how we can design out I call them fossil-based plastics. And we're thinking about single-use plastics made from oil, essentially, from the refraction process of oil. And I'm going to show you and share with you some of the work that's going on in that area. I became very inspired by the whole movement of going plastic free, partly because of this lady. And if you've not come across Sian Sutherland, she's become a very good friend, but if you Google A Plastic Planet, you'll find out a bit more about her. But her and another lady called Frederica Magnusson started A Plastic Planet to try and put pressure on the government, on business, retailers, to try and change behavior and become less dependent on wrapping products with single-use plastics. You know, we don't need fruit and veg wrapped in plastic. You know, we just don't. There are better ways of doing it. And that frustration is what drove Sian and Frederica to start the A Plastic Planet. And they're essentially trying to, through a trust mark, we just go back, the trust mark that you see there, that plastic-free trust mark, you'll start to see that on the front of products. And I'm going to show you some, I'm going to go into a bit of detail later on that. But if you were wondering, what other materials that we can make packaging from, well, I'm not going to go through all of them because there are so many, but there's such a multitude of natural products produced in some cases in vast quantities by nature. We don't need to be using a non-renewable precious resource such as oil to make plastic, to make packaging, particularly when it's going to last, perhaps seconds or minutes or hours. It's just not necessary. And here's a list. And if you want to download and look into more detail of these materials, if you go onto the aplasticplanet.com materials library, you can see some of the things that can be made from these materials. There's a whole host of them. Packaging made from grass, made from hemp, made from materials that have been around for forever, and there's no reason why they can't be used instead of fossil-based plastics. And you might ask, well, why do we make packaging out of fossil-based plastics? It's primarily because it's so cheap. Plastics and the oil industry is one of the most subsidized sectors on the planet, and basically plastic is too cheap. It's a fantastic, clever material. Let's not deny that. It is incredibly, it's ingenious, but it's too cheap. And of course, it's very difficult to remove from the environment. When it breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastics and then enters into the food chain, that's when we have these problems, which is why making packaging from alternative natural materials that are made by nature, made sustainably, and then can be reabsorbed by nature is so important. And there's a few more. Good old bamboo. And we're seeing, lots of things like fruit punnets now are starting to be made out of bamboo and fiber from trees and plants, and all sorts of things. Okay, and there are many, many, many more. Right, so I'm going to get into some specifics. I don't know whether you've seen this product before, but this is a material made from seaweed, and it can be used to contain liquids and sauces. It's already been used to contain spirits, and in this case, Lucozade and tomato sauce. The only problem with it is it's got a very short shelf life. It very quickly releases the moisture, but it can contain a liquid for about 7 days. What is also interesting about this material is it's also edible. So not only is it doing a packaging job, it's a bit like a fruit skin. Once it's done, it's protecting and containing. You can also eat it. It doesn't taste particularly great, to be fair, but it is edible. Other interesting things that are going on, and one of the things we see in the world of packaging is sort of the mixture of materials. When you mix paper, for example, and plastic, and you create a laminate, that makes it extremely difficult to separate. If you can just imagine, when you put plastic and paper in your mixed recycling, separating those things, it's very expensive. Now, there is equipment to do it, but more often than not, it requires a sort of physical human intervention to actually separate things out. But what we are starting to see is, like in this case, Pieminster, their pie cartons, instead of using a plastic window, they're using a cellulose window. They're using a window that's made from wood pulp. It looks and feels identical to plastic, but it's actually made out of trees. It's actually made in Derby as well, would you believe, which makes it even better. So it comes from managed forests, which in this case are PEFC certified. It's turned into this beautiful clear cellulose-based material. And then that is glued to the box, to the carton, to make a clear window. And it works just the same as a plastic window. It costs a little bit more, maybe, 5% more, maybe 5 or 10% more, but it does the same job. And you'll see that in this case, Prime Minister, in order to communicate that change, not only have they used the plastic-free trust mark, but they've also very clearly communicated that this, what looks like a plastic window, is actually made out of wood pulp, which is, I think, quite good. Now, without wanting to blow our own trumpet, when the pandemic broke out, we thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? A lot of our suppliers, our factory suppliers, became quite quiet, unfortunately. So we decided to develop some PPE, a shield for protecting against coronavirus. Now, this visor here, that is made from that same material. That is, it's clear substrate, this material that is cellulose, that is made from wood pulp. So we made these shields so that they could be used for protect you from being coughed over or whatever. And they go to factories and to restaurants. They will do when the restaurants open again. Filmmakers use them. They're being used in churches as well, would you believe? They're being used by all sorts of different people to protect them. So there you go. There's an interesting example of how you can combine different materials to create something that's made by nature and can be reabsorbed by nature. We supply this range of products into the Kia Oval cricket ground in South London, and you'll notice that on both of these are food trays, these are hot food trays and hot coffee cups. All of those materials are sustainably sourced, in this case FSC certified and plastic free. And the inner liner on the food trays and on the hot coffee cups, instead of us using, normally we would use plastic, normally we would use polyethylene, which is the sort of common material. But by using those materials, that makes them really difficult to recycle. So instead of using plastic, we've used like a water-based barrier coating, which is about the same price as using plastic, using polyethylene, but it means that we can send that to any paper mill to be repulped back into something made from fiber, either packaging or newsprint or whatever. And the lid on that coffee cup that you can see there, that is actually made from sugar cane, from bagasse, which is the term for sugar cane. But in the future, we will probably, that lid at the moment is made overseas. It's made in Taiwan. But in about 3 months' time, that product will be made in South Wales, and it'll be made out of paper pulp from the waste collection of making packaging. Because we don't particularly like bringing coffee cup lids right around the world for obvious reasons. It's a very heavy footprint. Other crazy things that we've done along the way is we've developed, using water-resistant cardboard, we've made things like cardboard tents. So those things flatten down into about 1 meter by 1.2 meters. They're quite heavy, they're about 15 kilos each. But they can be used at festivals and at outdoor events, and they'll keep you waterproof, would you believe, for about 2 months, something like that. The idea is that they're meant to be temporary, they're meant to be branded, and the idea is that they would be sponsored by a beer company or a drinks company or a food company or something. So we've tested them out at Glastonbury and 1 or 2 other festivals over the last couple of years, and they perform really well. And out of the same material, we make things like ice buckets and fish boxes and all sorts of things, as you can imagine. Now, I don't know if you've seen this going on in the press now recently, but there's a factory in Denmark that's just started to make bottles out of paper. They have a liner on the inside, which is actually made out of sugarcane. And what is amazing is that would not have been possible even 2-3 years ago, but now we're starting to see the possibility of paper, putting a fizzy drink inside a paper bottle. That is technically really difficult. Putting a product like a whiskey, a very aggressive product like whiskey, inside a paper bottle, that's really, really difficult. Companies like Carlsberg Diageo, who own the Johnny Walker brand, and Coca-Cola, they're really committed to this. Now, are they going to switch all of their production from glass to aluminium into paper? No, that is not going to happen. Well, it's not going to happen in the short term. Will it happen in the long term? Well, guess what? It'll probably depend on you. It'll depend on your purchasing decision and what sort of pressure they're put under. It depends on what taxation comes on plastic, which we know that's coming. We know that there's a huge amount of pressure coming for brands to start using high level of recycled plastic to try and drive the whole recycling chain. Because at the moment, believe it or not, in the UK, we only recover and recycle less than 10% of our plastics. And most of that is bottles. So every, these flexible pieces of plastic, such as bags and flow wrap around various products, that goes to landfill or incineration. There's so little value in it, and it's so difficult to collect it, that it just goes to landfill. So that roughly 10% recovery of plastics is predominantly bottles, which is disgraceful. The other 90% is either incinerated, landfilled, or we export it. And it's shocking that we export a huge amount of our plastic packaging to poor countries like Myanmar and Indonesia, Africa, and now Turkey has been the latest one where we're exporting our waste. In a developed country like ours, a wealthy developed country like ours, to be exporting our waste, I personally think is a disgrace. So positive things, because for me, this is all about finding solutions and encouraging people, brand owners and retailers to come along the journey and make these changes. This is a really cool brand. You may or may not have seen it. You'll tend to see it in sort of smaller deli type of outlets. But that bag of crisps, instead of being made out of plastic, which 99.9% of bags of crisps are made of metallized plastic, a laminate of plastic and metallized plastic, this is made out of paper and cellulose. And okay, it doesn't give you the same shelf life as a plastic bag. It'll probably give you 6 months shelf life instead of 9 months, but it still gives you enough. And we would say, you know what, 6 months is probably enough. Do we really need to have products that have low shelf lives of 9 months, 12 months, 24 months? It's not necessary. And you know what? We've been driven into these long shelf lives predominantly because of supermarkets, because of the way we buy things. You know, we're doing less frequent shopping, and therefore that sort of storage requirement is necessary. But if we do move to a more of a top-up type style of shopping or online shopping, we probably don't need the long shelf lives anymore, which I think is good. Another great brand, this is a Swedish brand, a coffee brand. Again, they've moved to a very similar material to the crisp packets you saw. And this is a laminate of cellulose and paper. And you'll note that on the front of the pack that they've communicated not only is the coffee Soil Association certified and it's fair trade, but it's also plastic free. And that symbol of plastic free is going to become, I think, the standard to communicate in a very clear binary way that there's no plastic in this pack. And the rules of using that logo are really, really strict. So good on Percol for making that change. And I know that because they did that, they managed to keep their listing with Tesco. They were about to get delisted by Tesco, but because they were so committed to sustainability, not just through their packaging, but the way they behave as a business, they managed to keep their listing with Tesco. Now, I can't say too much about this, but we've all seen these little sachets that we use when we go to the chip shop and whatnot. Well, A Plastic Planet launched a campaign about a year ago called Sac the Sachet. Very natty, I know. And the idea is to put pressure on companies like Kraft Heinz to stop using plastic in these things, because you can't recycle them. You know, once that's contaminated with mustard or mayonnaise or whatever, or tomato sauce in this case, that cannot be recycled. So we're working with A Plastic Planet and Kraft Heinz to design that lot out. And we're nearly there. We're just at the sort of final stages of lab testing. And I'm hoping that certainly within the next year or two, you'll start to see these sachets disappearing and becoming more sort of paper-based, which can be composted. So once you've finished, you squirted out your sauce, you put that in the food bin. And that's what we want. I mean, ideally, we want to recycle these materials and get the value back from them. But when it's contaminated, as they will be in this case, then composting's fine, because then at least it'll come back to the soil, you get the energy back, and you have that virtuous biocycle. So this is a cool one. And I don't know whether you've ever seen this brand. If you go to Costco, you can buy this product. And about 2 years ago now, actually, we got asked by Three Oceans, could we help them design out all the plastic from their packaging. So the first thing we did is we removed all the plastic bags, removed all the plastic tape off the boxes, all the stuff that, when you go into a fish factory, you see plastic everywhere. And it seems to be the go-to material because, well, it's the way it's always been. Fish gets moved around in these polystyrene, expanded polystyrene trays, and then the fish goes into plastic bags, and then it gets there, and then it goes, and eventually it goes through the supply chain. At Three Oceans, it doesn't work like that anymore. The fish goes straight into a box, to a cardboard, waterproof, plastic-free box. That then goes into a corrugated box, and then it goes through to the supermarket. What is really, really cool, what we're doing with these guys, is we're also taking their fish waste. Their factory is based in Hull, in Yorkshire. We take their fish waste, that gets transferred across to a factory in Scunthorpe. We turn the fish waste into energy using an anaerobic digestion. I'm going to show you a little video in a minute of this. And then that energy gets turned into corrugated board. That then gets resupplied to a factory in Hull. They make the corrugated boxes, and that then gets resupplied to Three Oceans. So we're making fish waste powered packaging. It's never been done before. And I think it's the way that people are going to go more and more. They're sort of closing loops, using their waste to make the product or the packaging or something. That sort of partnership, collaborative approach, working with different suppliers and ways of moving things around, and just using common sense, really. I'm going to show you a little video, just 1 second. Hopefully this will work. Let's try. And the gentleman that's about to speak, Nick Kirby, he also sits on the board of my company. And he's the most amazing guy. And he's invested huge amounts of money in this project, which is based up in Scunthorpe. Here we go. Hopefully it works.
Coreboard Bioenergy is a plant that converts 25,000 tonnes per annum of food waste into energy, which is enough to power 1,500 homes with electricity and heat. We're using it for the factory next door, which is Coreboard UK, what we believe to be the world's first carbon neutral corrugated sheetboard manufacturer. There are two byproducts from the generation of energy: heat and fertilizer. Local farmers will buy this fertilizer. Heat is transferred into the site and is used to heat the building, the offices, and it's also used to preheat the water that goes to the boiler to manufacture the corrugated board. So there is no waste energy at all from this plant. Coreboard Bioenergy does have excess energy, and that is transferred into the national grid for all of us to use.
Tech worked. Boom. So that's we're near at the end. Yes, we're near at the end of my presentation. First of all, thank you for listening. One sort of thought I wanted to leave with you is that when you think of a product, you think of a brand, and you think of your favorite brand, the packaging is one of the ingredients. It's the clothing of the brand. It's integral to the values of the brand. it's the first thing you see before you consume what's inside the bottle, the carton, the whatever. And it is so important that how that piece of packaging communicates with you is true to the values of the brand. It is no longer acceptable for a brand to say that their product is healthy or is good for the planet or whatever, and if the packaging is not also healthy and good for you and good for the product and good for us collectively. And I think it's important that we start to question where things come from, in the same way that, you know, you question where your clothing is made and what it's made from, or where your food is grown, and, you know, how it's been treated, and have the animals been treated properly. It should be the same with packaging. And the only way to ensure that something is being sourced properly, made from materials that are sustainable and that have been ethically made, is just to ask questions, you know, and keep putting pressure on the suppliers, and eventually they'll have to, you know, stamp it on the pack and give you a breakdown. And I think they should do that. There are more and more brands. I've just bought a beanie hat from a New Zealand company, actually, and on the inside of the hat there's a little QR code, and you literally just scan it with your phone, and it then takes you to where that wool comes from. It tells you absolutely everything you want to know. It even tells you the you know, where the sheep was born, or when it was born, how, you know, the sort of life it's had, how much carbon's been consumed, the full Monty. Now, I think we should expect that kind of transparency from everything. Why not? But it's down to you to ask the questions and put people under pressure. Thank you for listening. Do you have any questions?
Oh, thanks, Ian. That was absolutely great. I've never.
I think I went over my 20 minutes. But.
Oh, no, that's absolutely fine. It was so interesting. I hadn't really thought about all the different types of resource there are to make packaging that can be alternatives to this plastic nightmare that we find ourselves in at most times. But yeah, did anyone have any questions for Ian at this stage?
Stunned you into silence, haven't I?
I think it's quite an eye-opener.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I for one didn't know these alternatives were available.
One material that we are going to be seeing being used to make packaging very soon, I hope, is actually elephant grass. Would you believe? And elephant grass can be grown anywhere, providing you've got a good supply of water. I know that people like James Dyson are investing heavily in this. There goes my front door. Just 1 second. 1 second.
That's fine. Elephant grass, that's a new one on me as well. I'm not really up to speed with my sustainable packaging.
That's one thing you can't legislate for, that somebody coming into your front door. Yeah, so elephant grass, I think, and what's interesting about elephant grass is it's the cost for it. The cost per tonne is about £150 a tonne. So to put that in perspective, this material is about £1,000 a tonne. All right. So imagine if we could make this and make it waterproof, etc., from elephant grass. It may not have the same integrity. There's a reason that's strong. The reason why we use the same material to make the tents, the reason why they're so strong is it's got very long, strong fibers that come from trees that grow quite slowly, sustainably, but slowly. Elephant grass grows like a weed, so it's got short little fibers and therefore probably won't make the same strength. But you could maybe mix some of that with the elephant grass and you end up with an interesting combination.
Definitely, but we're certainly making huge strides, it seems, to becoming away from this plastic with all these alternatives available. Hopefully our businesses, our brands, our startups, our graduates, etc., will be considering these sustainable processes as they go forward, and as new people are starting their businesses, they'll instantly go to these resources rather than the plastic alternatives. So yeah,
Without a shadow of a doubt, we're going to see these bioplastics, making molded, these type of, that is actually made out of plastic, but in the future that will be made out of plants. There's no reason why that couldn't be done today, actually. The issue has been not enough manufacturers of the base materials and not enough processors who can turn those base materials into physical things. So within the next year or two, that's all going to change. Very exciting. I mean, the whole sort of chemistry of materials is rapidly changing. So exciting.
Something to look forward to.
So
hopefully we'll have you back in a year, and this will just be commonplace that we use all these things.
Well, I think it probably will. Yeah. I mean, I'm confident that, first of all, plastics is going to get taxed to the point where it'll become sort of socially, it'll become more expensive. First of all, the playing field will become more level. And I think it will become socially unacceptable. I think brands are beginning to realize that being linked to single-use plastic is actually going to damage their brand. Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are under massive pressure. There was a legal filing 2 weeks ago in California going after PepsiCo and after Coca-Cola, basically saying, you've lied to us. You've told us that using all this plastic, it's not going to be any harm to the environment, to our health. That's not true. And we want you to pay for the clear up. And I think, this will be like asbestos and the tobacco fallout, where suddenly people are going to go, oh my God, we're going to have to pay for the damage here. I think we'll see the same thing with single-use plastics.
And if you've got brands as big as them making that change, then naturally the others will follow suit to keep up. So that's good news.
It is really, the hard part is that it's like a big juggernaut, changing a bottle that's filling, Coca-Cola bottles, plastic Coca-Cola bottles, high speed, very efficient. Change all of that infrastructure is actually quite difficult. They can't just switch the thing overnight. We're going to fill them all with paper bottles. It doesn't work like that.
No. But what's important is that these companies are at least thinking about it and trying to make the effort to move towards more sustainable packaging. So that's brilliant.
Absolutely. There's no two ways about that. They're all, if they haven't got a team in place making those changes, then they're about to appoint a team. It's a good time to be involved in design, environmental science, and all sort of the legal infrastructure around that as well. Ecocide, going after these companies to make sure that they're accountable for their misdemeanors. Anybody studying law at all? No?
Any law students or graduates?
Law students. I can't actually see you all, so.
No, I don't think so.
Ecocide, I don't know if anybody's heard of that term, ecocide, but I think we're going to be hearing more and more about big companies going under the hammer and being sued for bad behaviour, for causing damage to the environment, basically, and also damage to our health as well, important, and to the health of plants and animals, etc. A really, really great book that I've just finished reading is, if you get the chance, written by a chef, actually. It's called The Third Plate, by a guy called Dan Barber. And it talks about the connectedness between food, farming, and the impact on the environment. It's absolutely fascinating. We are what we eat, and we've become so disconnected from our plate of food. That's fundamentally why we've got the problems we've got. And also, you think about food, it also creates community. If we could get back to understanding the value of our food and where it comes from, and the importance of that community that creates, we'd probably untangle all the problems we have. Anyway, lovely to meet you all. And I hope that was useful.
Definitely. Really great. Thank you so much. So what I'll do now, thank you, Ian, is I'll invite Temeni to share her screen. Temeni Ayokusumu is the co-founder, the CEO and founder of EAD, and her business focuses around feminine care products. So if Ian, you're able to stop sharing your screen, that would be great. And then I'll hand over to Temeni to start sharing hers.
I'm going to say cheerio to you guys and girls now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Stop sharing. But lovely to meet you all and enjoy the rest of your day. Stop sharing. There.
Okay, nice to see you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. You okay to share your screen?
Share my screen.
Brilliant.
Let me just share my screen. Right, can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Right, so thank you for the introduction, Alexa, and hello everyone. I'm very happy to be talking about my business today and its environmental impact. It's very exciting knowing that there's more and more people who are dedicated and making decisions that benefit our planet in one way or another. You wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in preserving our natural environment, so that's great. So I'm going to talk a bit about my startup EAD, and EAD was coined from the Yoruba, and that's a tribe in Nigeria. Well, one of my tribes in Nigeria, because I'm actually from 2 tribes. So it was coined from the Yoruba word ogede, which means banana, because we use banana fibers to create eco-friendly feminine care products and packaging. And our starting products would be sanitary towels, panty liners, wipes, and then potentially we would look at creating tampons, ointments for pain relief, and other feminine care products. Our products will be free of toxic chemicals like bleach and polymers that you would ordinarily find in a conventional sanitary towel, as these can be cancerous and cause reproductive issues. They will also be fragrance-free, which is especially beneficial for women with sensitive skin to avoid contact dermatitis, but more generally because fragrances generally cause irritation in most women. Our products will be natural as well, which seems vague, but essentially what it means is that we don't create our products in a lab with chemicals. We use plant-based raw materials from the earth and manipulate them to make products for women. So we also won't be testing any of our products on animals or using any animal byproducts. So our products will be vegan and cruelty-free. So why are we different? Well, we're certainly not the first compostable, biodegradable, organic, vegan, natural, toxin-free, cruelty-free pad out there, and the list goes on. There's so many brands that do that already in the UK, but they use cotton, and it's the world's thirstiest crop. It also can't feed the farmers who grow it, and it certainly doesn't aid biodiversity of crops. They also use bamboo, and while bamboo is amazing, it doesn't aid biodiversity of alternative crops either. And since it's so woody, you can use it to build houses. It's so woody, it takes more chemicals to break it down for use in feminine care products. So we're different because firstly, we are market disruptive. There isn't another banana pad in the UK. And we have a unique circular model in that we repurpose waste material instead of growing plants only to use for single-use products that we inevitably throw away. We also provide more income for farmers and solve some of their pain points because we take the stems and debris off them in exchange for profit. So that also means that they don't have to worry about burning the waste produced from growing bananas, or paying for the waste to be removed, or the added task of composting large amounts of stems and debris. We are value driven in that we want our products recommended by everyone who uses them, especially because we are more than just the products. We hope to tackle more than just period poverty. We want to shed light on other female issues that don't get the media attention that they should. So we would also be donating a percentage of our profits to these causes. And some of these causes are things like VVF, which is vesico-vaginal fistula, the human hyenas, virginity rituals and testing. And then, so if you haven't heard of VVF, that's exactly the point of the brand. It's so that we shed light on things that people don't know about that's happening out there to women, things that are linked also to their periods and starting womanhood. So VVF is a disability where a hole develops between the vagina and bladder, causing incontinence through the vagina. And the most common cause of this is child marriage. So I'll leave that to your imagination, but it's horrendous. And then the human hyenas, some cultures, the parents pay men known as hyenas to sleep with their daughters once they start their periods. And then a female elder sits in on this and to ensure that the girl goes through it, and it can last up to 3 days and it's never done with any protection. So it's horrendous. It has to stop. Finally, we are transparent and ethical as a brand, and this means that you'll know where your products come from, you know what they're made of, and how we make them once we get our intellectual property rights. We believe that our customers deserve to know everything that's in the products that they use on their periods. So that's what makes us different. Sorry, I'm just waiting for the next slide to crop up. There we go. Yeah. Right, so Eid was visualized in the reverse order than most other businesses without sustainability or circularity at the forefront. It wasn't oh, I have a great product, now how do I make it sustainable scenario starting out. And I'm sure most environmentally friendly and sustainable companies can relate to. So it's starting with addressing sustainability problems, then creating the right product. I was personally responding to plastic overuse in everyday goods. I bought some banana leaves from Thailand, thinking I could get shops in the UK to do all the unnecessary wrapping of fruits and vegetables in them. And it's not entirely unrelated to what I'm doing now, because banana plants are still my raw material, but I'm genuinely so thankful for everyone in the startups team. They helped me through this, particularly James Cracknell for that initial direction in finding the right product and then going with that. If there's anyone here thinking about starting a business, I can't stress how important it is to have mentors, people who started businesses and can help you. And that's what the Essex Startups team are for me. So many pauses because I'm sharing it as a video, sorry. Great, okay. So Eid is beneficial to the environment in that it can solve two waste problems. So firstly, I briefly spoke about this earlier, agricultural waste, through repurposing already existing natural waste into a variety of everyday products. So for us, feminine care products. And Business Insider cites that for every ton of fruit, 2 tons of debris are produced, and that's inclusive of the stems. This waste is either burned or recklessly discarded, and it can also be composted, but it's more expensive for the farmers to do this because it's such a large number of stems, and yeah, it's not feasible for family farmers as well, which those are people that we would be working with. And it's not generally the rule of thumb to compost anyway. There is an abundance of banana plants, and each plant is capable of producing 240 bananas. There are even about 1,000 different varieties of bananas, and it's the fourth most important global food crop, with over 100 billion bananas being consumed annually. So it's safe to say bananas are here to stay, and that they contribute widely to food scarcity. And now they can also cater to the feminine care market through our brand, which is exciting. So we believe our products are better than the existing organic and conventional cotton variants because we eliminate the need to waste finite resources growing one-use crops for these disposable and short-term products. We make that choice to operate more circularly instead. And secondly, landfill waste. So because the fibers and products created naturally degrade in soil, it takes about 6 months compared to over 500 years for plastics, as quoted by Marie Claire as well. This provides an eco-friendly option that fits our current disposable consumer culture, and it eliminates the need for plastic in feminine care. So it's great so far. So I'm going to address how we extract the fibers from the stems. The rest of the debris we chop up and use to make the boxes and packaging, so the paper that we utilize to make those boxes. But I'm only going to discuss how we extract the fibers. And the first step is collecting the stems from the farmers in exchange for profit. Second step is sorting and cleaning the stems. Sometimes that involves soaking the stems. The third step is separating out the leaves and shoots that are tightly bound up to make the stem. The fourth step is completely flattening, pressing down each leaf for extraction. The fifth step is extracting the fibers through shredding. And the sixth step is sorting out the fibers for transport to drying racks individually. And then the last step is sun drying the fibers. Right, so this is the whole process put together. Hopefully I'll make that into an animation soon. So I've shown some of our manufacturing process with the stick diagrams in the earlier slides, and these will feature in our packaging. It's tied into our transparency and knowing exactly where the products come from and how they're made. And that's what I'm working on at the moment, packaging, product development of the sanitary towels and wipes. I'm on my second product development trial, actually. It's stressful, but it's going well. So that's good. Branding, also working on branding. Key partnerships, finding people who will be instrumental, beneficial to the whole process. And that links into my next slide on challenges. Right, so I have a couple of challenges at the moment, and I'll discuss 3 of them with you. The first being partnering with private label companies, because taking on things that are very new in some ways, but very ancient in other ways, because banana fabric has been around for centuries, just never commercialized to the scale that I want it at. And most of the private label companies have never produced anything like my product, and will have issues with scaling or might not want to attempt making the product, or they might be interested in taking the idea and putting the product out there for themselves because they have the capacity to do that before I'm able to launch. So it's hard working with a private label company without your intellectual property rights. Even when you do have those rights, there are limits to protection. Like for patents, you only have about 20 years. So that's also a factor. The second challenge is automating the manufacturing process. This is one of the factors I thought I would have to do until I started thinking about scalability. So yes, another shameless shout out to the Essex Startups team. But I did this with like so much research, it started to bleed through my ears really, but none of it truly prepared me for actually working on the product. I'd read how it wasn't labor intensive and I'd marketed it that way, but then I did it myself and it was so hard to do. But luckily, by doing the physical work, I can see all the ways that it can be mechanized, and it gets me excited thinking about finding the right engineers to design my machinery alongside me. But then again, this is funding, which is my final challenge. So getting enough money, I mean, a lot of startups can relate to this one. I took part in Big Essex pitch last year and I won £1,000 and it was amazing. But I'm slowly starting to become more aware of extra costs that I need if I want to achieve a brand that I've dreamed of, my business. So yes, there are definitely challenges to overcome, but I believe I'm up to the task and I'm excited to launch soon. Right, so thank you for listening. I hope some of the things I discussed on utilising our waste better stuck with you. Also, I hope I highlighted the importance of a circular business model for businesses that you want to start, currently run, or even buy from at the moment. And I wish you all a happy Environmental Awareness Week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. That was amazing. It's so interesting to, well, not only learn more and more about our student and graduate businesses, but something that is quite specific to females. It's really great to hear the strides that are being made, because you don't really think about it until you mentioned, the kind of the volume of waste we can go through in a week is quite substantial for some of us. And it's sad that we are causing that impact on the rest of the planet through no fault of our own. But when there are people like you that are making those extra efforts to try and alleviate the pressure that these things are causing, I think it's just absolutely outstanding. And I'm really excited for when you get to the stage of launching and things like that. I can't wait to tell all my female friends about it. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much.
And of course, like you said, funding will often become a really key element to everyone's startups. The Essex Startups team will have more funding opportunities throughout the year. I think that's something Lauren's working on at the moment. So keep an eye on our newsletters and our social media for more funding available. And I've been fortunate enough to work alongside the Students' Union at the moment, who are also running an entrepreneurial project series where they've invited speakers to come and talk about entrepreneurship. And the university in general have this really huge drive to encouraging our students in those enterprise areas, in entrepreneurship in general. And the SU will be putting on a Dragon's Den in May. So keep an eye on their pages as well. It's another area for funding. So just grab any opportunity for funding you possibly can. And if you ever need help from the startups team again to practice your pitch, that's what we're here for. We are here to just help, really. There's no judgment, there's no deadlines from us. We just want to help everyone succeed as much as they can. So did anyone else have any questions for Tameni at this stage about her product or the challenges she's facing?
I've got a question, actually. How long do you think until you'll be able to release the packaging and the solutions they're essentially you're offering? As
So
on the mass, as it were, if you know what I mean.
in terms of the packaging, so the boxes I was talking about, that can happen very soon because it's really about me making the paper and assembling it. And I've already made the paper, so that's not really my challenge at the moment. I also didn't discuss the packaging, but in terms of the pads themselves, I've made like the first look at how I want it to look. I think it needs so much more. So I'm working on perhaps having a subsidiary company with a product that I've been working on aside from this. So it's in hair care to kind of raise money also through that to fund finally like assembling my pad. So I'm thinking in terms of a timeline, I hope by the end of this year, but then it could push the start of next year as well. But then not my subsidiary company though, because I'm close to the product. So it's exciting. I would have the packaging and the hair itself, which is great. So yeah, I'll see how it goes.
Sounds exciting.
Any questions from anyone else at all?
Yeah, I think I have like a question about partnerships, and like if you've already started thinking about what companies you want to be partnering with, I mean, how does that process go? I mean, do you start with those companies that have similar values as your company has, like vegan, vegetarian, or eco-friendly, or do you search up for small companies that are eager to start using more eco-friendly products? Or if you've already like reached anyone, yeah, that would be really interesting to hear. Or any plans for the future?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. I'm very excited that I was in this Zoom meeting because just listening to Ian Bates, I might reach out to him because he has similar values. It's so crazy. I was zoned in on his presentation, so that's something. I'm also, because I want it to be, there's two business models I'm looking at, so membership oriented and direct sales. For my membership model, I will need to partner with a lot of different companies. So in terms of producing the kind of intimate and like specific care to each of my clients, so they would have a box of it won't just be your pads included in your box. Do you have salty cravings on your period? Do you have sugar cravings? Those kind of things. I would need to brands like that who provide salty, healthy snacks for them. They need to also be sustainable because, like you said, like Ian Bates said, it has to be wholesome. Everyone that you work with has to also share the same values, otherwise it doesn't work. They're not pushing the right brand image out there. So yeah, definitely I'm still thinking, I think small companies, to answer your question on small companies, that would be great because I'm a small company. I would like to help other small companies. Collaboration is key. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yep, thanks.
That's brilliant, and that's what we're all here for, and that's another element of what I hope our students and graduates can get out of the events that we put on, is meeting like-minded people, other entrepreneurs, even ones that you can share skills with and learn from and work alongside, because we're all in this together, and we're all like-minded in what we want to achieve in life with our businesses, etc. So it's a really great platform to keep coming back to these kind of events, just so you can meet other people that are really interested in the same area as you are, and hopefully you can find people that you can learn from and work with. So is there any more questions for Temeni at this stage, or any questions in general? Nope. Well, all I'd like to say then is thank you all so much for coming. It's been a great day. It's been really interesting to hear about the two businesses and the products and the things that they're working on. It's also important to discuss our challenges that we're facing, because nothing is really smooth sailing from the off. So, but it shows real promise and real positive action is taking place in the world. And I think that is the important takeaway from this, is that people are working towards achieving these environmental goals for all of us. And it's great that our students and graduates are the ones leading the way. So really, really exciting. Thank you so much. If you're interested in the other talks, we are hosting more talks on Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Same time, The links will be available online, so please join in if you can. Tomorrow we're hearing from another graduate, a PhD student, Somdip Day, who works on a food and stock management app. So that's all about waste management, food management, and his app Nosh, alongside a representative from Adnams PLC, who make beverages, mostly alcoholic drinks, but also their environmental strides that they're making as well in the area. So yeah, thanks again for coming, everyone. We have recorded this session. Once the wonderful Christian has done his magic and edited it, it will be available on YouTube. So share it with your friends as well. Thanks once again to Many. Great talk. Lovely to see you as ever. And I wish you all a great rest of your day.